Yo, Zenith Nation, welcome back to Catch The Zenith, the podcast where I document my journey to get better in life and business. Today we've got another episode of Zenith Reflections where I comment on some of my most interesting posts from the week on X. And by the way, if you're new here to this podcast, I'm Nicola, I'm an entrepreneur and master student, so please share and enjoy. The first post is one by Tim Ferriss, the author of The 4-Hour Workweek, a great book. And he shared some of the wisdom he learned from Seth Godin, which is an author and entrepreneur. And something in that post, what stuck out to me was this: why everyone should blog every day. And Ferriss is here quoting Seth Godin, presumably from one of his interviews he had with Seth. And Seth said, "Everyone should blog, even if it's not under their own name, every single day. If you are in public making predictions and noticing things, your life gets better. Everyone should blog, even if it's not under their own name, every single day. If you are in the public making predictions and noticing things, your life gets better, because you will find a discipline that can't help but benefit you. If you want to do it in a diary, that's fine. But the problem with diaries is because they are private. You can start hiding. In public, in this blog, there it is. 6 weeks ago, you said this. 12 weeks ago, you said that. Are you able every day to say one thing that's new that you are willing to stand behind? I think that's just a huge, wonderful practice." So that's what Seth Godin said. And I think the core of this simply to have a regular writing routine and come up with new ideas and put them out there and stand behind that thing. And personally, I do something similar. I don't do it on a daily basis. I do it more on a weekly basis together with on my newsletter called Zenith Sunday, where I basically share my mistakes, my learnings on business and high performance. And that's one way how I do it. And I think that was pretty, it had a good impact on my life because it helps me every single week to reflect on the week and think, were there any new ideas I'm willing to share or want to share that were important to my life, and keeps me also reflected. So I think about stuff and I think it's a cool practice. And then on the other side, it's not only good for yourself that you reflect on the week, but it's also maybe interesting to build up an audience, which is also beneficial, especially nowadays. So all this to say that blogging, I think, definitely right now underrated thing. You don't necessarily need to blog. You can also do it in a podcast, perhaps. But I think still the written word is, I would say, almost the most precise thing we can put out there. Obviously, if we speak, that can also be precise, but I think text is another level in precision. And it also helps to think properly. That's something I've experienced when I write my newsletter on a weekly basis, that it helps me to bring all the thoughts I have in my head into a structured piece I put out there. So if you want to start a newsletter or a blog, it's pretty simple. If you go for a newsletter, just go on kit.com, KIT.com. I'm not affiliated with them, or I'm not have a partnership with them, not at all, but I just use their service for my newsletter. There they have a free version, and also Substack is, for instance, an option. And there are, of course, also many blogging tools as well. But for instance, Kit you can also use as a blogging tool, so it's pretty easy to get started. Then the next one. When faced with a task you don't want to do, replace "I have to" with "I get to do this thing." This is a simple shift. I think I first came across on Ali Abdal, the is a YouTuber, on his channel, and it simply puts if you're doing something difficult, I used to say or used to tell myself like, oh no, I have to do that thing, or that's I used to do it like that. And what I started more and more to do over the past, I think, 4-ish years is to say, hey, I get to do this thing. I'm grateful for it. I'm thankful for it. And then all of a sudden, everything is way easier. And it's not like that burden on my shoulders. And I'm actually grateful for it. And I remember telling me that, I think, in situations in my first internship when I had plenty of stuff going on and telling myself, hey, it's already late, but hey, I get to do that. I get to do this work, so I'm grateful for it. It's way easier. And because if we tell ourselves, I have to do that, like give you a specific example, like imagine your boss coming in at 5 p.m., 6 p.m., or even a customer if you're an entrepreneur, telling you something to do, or they have like an issue, then and you need to solve that right now, or you need to do that work right now, then you have two options. You could say, I have to do that, I'm pissed off, I don't want to do that, but then it takes way longer and you're thinking about why it's so bad and so on. Or you could simply say, hey, I'm grateful that I get to do this work. It's a decision. It's actually cool to do that. I have the privilege. Then all of a sudden it's maybe perhaps a little bit easier to get it done. Next one. Some personal food favorites to boost my health. It's just personal experience. Garlic, onion, eggs, ginger, lemons, sweet potatoes, broccoli, flaxseed / sesame oil. So one thing I experienced in my life, or what had a profound impact on my life, was eating non-processed food for the majority of time. Not always, but I would say I eat quite a lot of unprocessed food, and I feel pretty well. And that is just a selection of things, of foods that serve me pretty well. Garlic, onion, obviously, garlic is like super powerful. I just had, I'll give you a quick story. I just had one day where I was like knocked out a little bit because I ate something bad, presumably maybe chicken, because I was on Dominican Republic, had a great time there, and one day I was a little bit sick. I needed to throw up, and but then the next day, or on that day, I ate some garlic, some ginger, lemons. I squeezed some lemons, and then I felt already better. So garlic, definitely, I think it's a powerful thing. I can't measure the exact impact, but I feel pretty well with it. Not only when I'm healthy, but also when I'm sick, to get back again healthy. Then eggs, obviously powerful thing. Ginger and lemons. What I usually do, just like almost every day, I prepare a tea that contains ginger, lemons, mountain tea, which contains different herbs, and another thing, let me quickly look that up. Nettle tea as well. And that is a good mixture and tastes pretty good. And yeah, I would say it boosts my immune system, and yeah, quite cool. And by the way, I put the entire lemon peel inside, because within the peel there are a lot of good stuff, basically. I don't know if that's recommendable in every country. I don't do any recommendations here, but in Switzerland, I would say fairly safe to do, because in some countries there are a lot of bad stuff in the peel. So then maybe you can think about it if that makes sense. Then sweet potatoes, obviously also a great one. Complex carbs, broccoli, flaxseed, sesame oil. Flaxseed oil I like. I think that there you have a lot of omega-3 fatty acids, if I'm not mistaken. So take it also from time to time. Sesame oil anyway, together with my supplements to absorb it better. So that's just a quick selection of foods that serve me well. Next one, the most influential online virtual mentors in my life. So basically what I did in that post, I listed out some of the people that had a significant impact on my life or improved my life. The first person is Professor Jordan B. Peterson. with his books 12 Rules for Life and Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life, and his many lectures on YouTube, podcasts, and all the lots of shorter clips on YouTube as well. He's incredible. Can't describe how great he is of a thinker, and I learned a lot from him in terms of how to live a good life. So that's and by the way, I always want to see Jordan Peterson live, and this will happen this year in May. I'm going to watch his show in Amsterdam on May 17th, if I'm not mistaken. And it's quite cool. I booked like a meet and greet ticket, and then after that, the actual show happens. So I'm pretty much looking forward to that one. Alex Hormozi, in terms of business, I would say there are a lot of folks out there that are pretty successful at what they do in terms of business, but not really successful as educators. And Alex does both excellently. He's a great educator and a great businessman, and I see that pretty rarely out there. Then the next one, Huberman. Huberman is a neuroscientist, so everything about mental, physical health, stuff like that. I think he has a lot of interesting stuff to share. I'm following him since he started his podcast back in 2021, I think. So Huberman Labs or Huberman Lab, great podcast. Then Sam Ovens. Sam Evans is the founder of consulting.com and school.com. School.com is a software or platform for communities, presumably the fastest growing right now, and presumably the next Facebook for communities. And Sam Ovens has a lot of old YouTube videos online, which I highly recommend watching. They are pretty simple. No, not really made for a dopaminergic brain. Pretty darn simple. I highly recommend watching them, like videos like how to make a decision, for instance. They are, or why one video is, I think, called "Why Your Brain Is Fucked." There are so many great videos. They are quite long, but every single one, almost every single, or those which I watched, they are definitely worth it to watch. Then Col Newport, particularly his podcasts. Col Newport has a podcast, I guess, called Deep Questions. And his book, Deep Work, had a great impact on my life, which is all about why deep work is required in nowadays economy, or was always really important to get meaningful stuff or produced and done. So Col Newport, I think a computer science professor, and this core idea of deep work, doing one thing at a time, getting the most cognitive tasks done, that really stuck with me, really powerful. The next person is Leila Hormozi, which is who is the wife of Alex Hormozi, power woman, really cool person. And especially when it comes to leadership topics or relationship topics, she has some interesting YouTube videos on her YouTube channel. Then Ali Abdal, a productivity YouTuber, especially I would say back in 2020 and 2021, I watched a lot of his YouTube videos. Nowadays a little bit less, but in terms of how to learn for an exam, if you're a student, very, very powerful, but also business-wise and productivity-wise. Naval Ravikant, he's the founder of Angel List, and he has like a podcast episode, How to Get Rich. It's, I think, 3-ish hours long. I would recommend listening that every single year at least once. It's all about how you create wealth, and the title is perhaps a little bit misleading. It's way more powerful than just how to get rich. I highly recommend it. It's I would say some of the best pieces out there on the internet by anybody on how to get wealthy and live a good life. Naval Ravikant, How to Get Rich, watch that. Tim Ferriss, or listen to that. Tim Ferriss, obviously with the 4-Hour Workweek, but also with his podcast, The Tim Ferriss Show. Highly recommend that. Chris Williamson with his podcast Modern Wisdom. I think currently one of the best podcasts out there, because he really went pro with everything. He has this obsession with details. He does just a great job, and now he's where he at, and he's pretty darn consistent. Then Charlie Morgan. Charlie Morgan is an entrepreneur, and he has a YouTube channel. He does similar videos like Sam Ovens. I think Charlie was actually mentored by Sam Ovens back in the day. That's kind of interesting. He does a lot of business content about how to build your business, but also a little bit neuroscientist stuff in terms of dopamine. So quite interesting. And lastly, Patrick David has also, particularly with his YouTube channel Valuetainment, a lot of interesting stuff out there, and with his podcast PBD. Definitely worth a watch. I'm following him also now for a longer time. So those were some of the people that had a significant impact on my self-improvement and business journey. Then next post. Ever heard of the 70-20-10 business rule? It's simple. 70% goes into core products. Think like Tesla's Model 3 and Ypsilon, if we make a specific example. Then 20% explores new but related ideas, like for instance the Cybertruck or Tesla Semi. And then 10% bets on disruptive moonshot tech like humanoid robot Optimismus or Neuralink via Elon Musk. And I found that very interesting, because I always had hard times how to, like, on what exactly you should focus on in business. And 70% goes into your main thing that already works. You do more of that. Then 20% into adjacent things, like things that are related but not exactly the same thing to your core product. And then 10% are the big bets, like crazy stuff. You can, like, you for instance can define a budget like just for that thing, and then you do experiments, crazy stuff, and maybe something will work out, and you can apply that everywhere. Like if you produce social media content, 70% of what already works, then 20% of like adjacent stuff, and 10% you can do experiments, completely new posts you never tried out before, like, or the format of it. So the 70-20-10 rule. Then the next one, this is a powerful one by Alex Hormozi. He basically described how Elon Musk's algorithm for improving anything. I don't need to explain who Elon Musk is, I guess, the greatest entrepreneur ever lived, presumably. And here's the framework. Step 1, you question the requirements. Then step 2 is you delete dumb requirements. 3, optimize. 4, accelerate timelines. And 5th, automate. But this framework is not only powerful for business or anything, but also interesting for improving life. And Hormozi, again, write down those 5 phases, but now apply to life. Let me quickly read that. Phase 1 is you question why you should do stuff. Phase 2, you delete dumb people and expectations. Step 3, you pursue the opportunity that gives you the highest return. Then in phase 4, that's a very powerful one, and I think part of the reason why Elon Musk is so successful, you see how you can do it in 1/10 the time. So you accelerate. You say, why should it take 2 weeks if I can do it in 2 days? And then in phase 5, get other people or other things to keep pursuing those goals without you. So you automate stuff, whether it's through technology or people. So I just think that's a powerful framework how to improve anything in business, or a lot of stuff in business, but also in life in general. The next one, a quote by Naval Ravikant. Don't do things that you know are morally wrong. Not because someone is watching, but because you are. Self-esteem is just a reputation that you have with yourself. You will always know. So this reminds me a little bit of what Jordan Peterson wrote in his book, like about lying. It's similar to that. If you lie, you not only deceive someone else, you lie to someone else, you also lie to yourself and deceive yourself. And it's like you actually lie to two people. That's the very bad stuff about lying. And also to your self-esteem, like Naval Ravikant said. And therefore, I think a great way how to improve your life is just you tell the truth, or at least you don't lie, which is a rule by Jordan B. Peterson from his book 12 Rules for Life. And why not, he says, don't speak the truth, or at least don't lie. Why at least don't lie? Because it's hard to know what is the truth. But I think the powerful or the important thing here is to tell at least your truth, what you perceive as to be true. And that's a good starting point. And Peterson also talks about, like, if you don't know what you should do in life, if there's a challenging situation and you don't know what to do, the easiest thing to do is you tell the truth. That's the solution to it. There is no big magic. If you don't know what to do, tell the truth. And although it can be very hard, it's a pretty sustainable long-term strategy, I believe. At least it helped me in my life. Next one, this is basically some takeaways from a video I watched of Huberman, Andrew Huberman, I mentioned before. The video was on how to control hunger, eating, and satiety. One core takeaway was the foundation to satiety and controlling hunger is not eating any processed foods. Like, instead of that, you eat whole foods. In my life, helped me very, very well. I have almost no cravings, or zero cravings actually. Definitely less cravings when I eat no processed food. The next one is to have moderate increase of blood glucose levels and not binge eat, is to first eat vegetables, then proteins, and lastly carbs. The interesting thing is here, the order matters. So the order in which you eat your food, your meals, can have an impact on your glucose levels and also on controlling hunger or satiety, which was kind of interesting. And then also working out can lead to moderate increase of blood glucose levels. And lastly, an idea which I picked up below this video in the comments, and I also learned that from Novak Djokovic's book, like something in German, it's Siegernahrung, but I don't know how it's called in English. But anyway, you will find it. There was an idea of chew your food slowly and properly. I think one advantage of that is then your satiety level can start to jump in, or your satiety, and also you can really enjoy the foods and train your sensors to really enjoy the food and eat slowly. Helped me in my life tremendously. All right, next one. Going from 0 to 1 million in revenue, you do this. One target customer, so one avatar, one product or one offer, and one acquisition channel, for instance, Instagram or LinkedIn. So obviously I haven't gone yet from 0 to 1 million, but this is something I learned from other people who went from 0 to 1 million, and I thought it's worth sharing. So some folks out there, like, there's a book called Ready, Fire, Aim. I think some people got it from there. Hormozy also mentioned it. When you start a business, you need to focus, and it's really helpful to have a clear target customer. Like, I used to have a coaching business. My target customer there was high performers, adults with ADHD. So that was my target customer. I had one product, one coaching program. It was a 10 weeks, 12 weeks-ish program. That was my product. And I had more or less one acquisition channel, which was Instagram. And then I had my podcast, but my main acquisition channel was Instagram. And it made everything pretty darn simple. And I think when you start, it's a helpful framework to know, okay, I just need a clear niche, a clear target customer. I create one product and I make it very, very good before I go to a second one, because that's a mistake that many people out there are doing. They're going too fast to a second product, and I wanted to do the same, but then I realized, hey, better I focus on the main product, make it darn good, and then I think about a new one. And lastly, one acquisition channel, especially if you're a solopreneur or maybe pretty small, you obviously have time constraints, so therefore you want to maybe focus on one acquisition channel. And I thought I think there is also that framework by Hormozy. You can go um, you can go first deep and then wide, or wide and then deep. That means you can first go deep, like on one channel, like Instagram. You post a lot of content there. You max everything out. Your posts are really good. You do it on a daily basis. You put out there a lot of pieces of content. And then you go wide, or you expand the width of it. You go to other platforms and do again the same thing there. You go deep, and yeah, that's one approach. And then the other approach is you first go wide, so you cover a lot of acquisition channels, and then you go deep on each of those channels. That's another approach. Hopefully I explained it correctly, but if you want to look it up, it's from the book $100 Million Leads. Just one strategy how you can approach posting content online and deciding which platform I want to use. But it's fairly safe to say, I think, to make it really simple, going from 0 to 1 million, doing those three things that I just explained: one customer, one product, and one acquisition channel, makes it really clear what we should do. And ultimately in business, it's all about, or most of it is, focus. Next one, doing customer interviews to find a problem worth solving. Read first The Mom Test by Rob Fitzberger, then you know the basics. And to execute and get implementation steps, read Lean Customer Development by Cindy Alvarez. So I've conducted, I think, over multiple businesses, a little bit 100 something customer discovery interviews. And maybe for those of you who don't know what are customer discovery interviews, those are interviews with potential customers that are like within your target customer group, and you try to discover a problem worth solving. So you try to find a problem that you want to solve with your business, and you are basically validating your problem, your assumptions. If you start a business, you have certain assumptions about the market, about the target group you want to serve. For instance, when I started one project, we wanted to build a software business. We had the assumption that other software companies struggle with their KPIs, their key performance indicators. Like they track everything in Excel sheets, which is pretty prone to errors, takes a lot of time. And that was our hypothesis. And then we went out and we conducted, I think, 36 interviews. And we realized, yeah, there is a pain, but that pain is not that big. It's like, yeah, maybe you can make out of that, you can build a profitable business, but not a really big one. So that was a major learning. And we validated that, or we learned that by conducting those interviews. And I highly recommend to understand how to talk to customers to get to the truth, because customers can lie to you definitely if you approach them wrongly. Like if you pitch them to directly your ideas, they don't want to hurt your feelings with their answers, so they don't tell you the truth. However, if you are generally more interesting about the problem, like tell me about the last time you did X, Y, Z, you are just looking at the evidence as opposed to made up things. And Rob, the Mom Test gives you, I would say, the mindset, the bigger picture framework. And then if you need the practical steps, read the book Lean Customer Development. So whenever you start a business, I think that's one approach how you can make sure that the problem you think is out there that someone has is actually true and they really have a problem. So you talk to those potential people. And I did that over and over again, and it worked pretty darn well. And it decreases the likelihood that you build a business that nobody wants. Next one, best prompt for copywriting/marketing. Rewrite this text in 3rd grade reading level. That's the prompt basically you give to GPT, for instance. And interestingly, by doing this, you do both smart and stupid people a service. Smart people need to think less when reading that, so it saves time, and dumb people can understand it, comprehension. So let me quickly explain. I created already several pitch decks for different business ideas I had. And one thing I've learned is investors, all customers need to understand what you put out there. obviously. And also when you create a social media post, it's for people way easier to understand it if it's in simple words. And it's not only good, and it's really good also for smart people because they need to spend less time on it. For people that are not so smart, they understand it at least, and that's a good thing. And if you watch a lot of ads that are successful out there, they are using pretty simple language. And I think sometimes what I've seen is people use pretty formal and fancy words they don't really understand themselves, and then in the end nobody understands really what's going on. But if you use super simple language that everybody understands, you can actually make a point and convey your message better. And I use that prompt of like rewrite this text in third grade reading level over and over again, or at least I say simplify it, use simpler words, and it makes it just clearer, as opposed to like a super hard to read sentence with fancy words that nobody are using on a regular basis. And that brings me to the last post for today I want to discuss, which is the core of business is always similar. First, you find a problem worth solving by, for instance, what I just outlined before, using customer discovery interviews. Second, you create a solution, product, or offer to solve it. And then once you have your product, and it doesn't need to be, by the way, in that particular order, but then the next step would be you let people know about the stuff you sell. So you market. Great book here to read is $100 Million Leads, which exactly gives you the blueprint how to do that. Then you sell. You have a sales call. You sell. Depends a little bit on the business, obviously. Like if you're B2B, you have multiple sales calls. You have a sales process, perhaps. If you B2C, you maybe don't need that. You directly can sell through a page online, a landing page. Then you deliver the product, obviously. Then you make the customer worth more. So maybe you upsell them at one point, or they just want more of the product they already have. And then you get customers to refer you. So referrals, that's really powerful, word of mouth. And I think this blueprint, and obviously there is more to it, there are nuances and details, obviously. Just for me personally, I want to simplify it because the process is more or less always the same. And once you have understood this process, it's way easier to execute it, and you can always replicate that when starting something new. Because no matter what you are starting anyway, you need a problem worth solving. And a lot of people talk more about ideas, but I think that's not the right approach. I believe first asking yourself, okay, which problem I want to solve? Because businesses are solutions to problems, basically. And like with my ADHD coaching business, people had the struggle of procrastination, and I solved it with a program. And so I had a problem which I identified, which was pretty common among a lot of ADHDers. And I provided a solution which was my 10 or 12 week program. That's it. So I hope that helps and that you understand a little bit each part of it. And maybe the last thing I want to cover was the last point I said, you get customers to refer you. I think that's just such an underrated thing sometimes. Like word of mouth is just so powerful and makes everything easier. There's a powerful question like, what will you do if you're not allowed to market anymore from today on? The answer is you would make your product super good. And the customers you get from word of mouth are most of the time the people pretty easy to work with. I had one example. I had a client and he really liked my program, my coaching program, and he referred me a friend of him. And this friend, it was so easy to work with. There was already trust. He did directly his payment. He just said, hey, send me the payment link, I will pay it. And he paid directly. And I don't need to nudge him or something like that. Hey, your payment is open or something like that. And then it was easy to work with because the trust was already there. And this is exactly what you want in the end. And I think, just word of mouth. do a crazy good job with your product and you get people referred to you. And some business out there, I have a good friend of mine, he does like Google ads, something like that for folks out there, for small and mid-sized businesses, and he gets so many referrals. He actually doesn't mark anything, you know, he just get referrals, word of mouth, that's it. All right, guys, so that's it for this week. Thank you so much for listening, for tuning in, and talk soon.